our first order of business is to welcome a new member who is not on the call yet.
I think that Michael, he didn't accept the meeting today. I think that he had a conflict, so he won't be on, but we can still talk about
recognize officially that Michael Page from MSDE has been appointed to our working group. So that is official, which is excellent. It's great to have another representative from MSDE fill that role. So we are really grateful for that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Next is what is next? Are we gonna focus on recommendations?
Yeah.
So focus on recommendations. And there's been a lot of feedback given on the recommendations. There was even discussion of our especially the MDOT1 has had some extra discussion that we can update on. Plus we have representatives of MDOT. We welcome them here today and they'll be a little late joining. So we should probably push that one till further in the meeting. Do we want to take them in order?
Sure, we can do that. But just to provide some context for everybody, ahead of today's meeting. So today's meeting is going to be ideally a voting meeting. So the recommendations to the commission from the working groups are due on September 1st. This is our last meeting before that time. If needed, we could move, at least part of the voting to, over email if necessary. But I think the ideal outcome today is that we are able to finalize all of our recommendations. That way, we can put that in the Google form that's due to the commission by the deadline. As Amy pointed out, we're going to have a visitor from MDOT today that's going to come and talk about it. So Jim has organized Morgan Ellis to come and talk a little bit about the EV recommendation, the EV advertising recommendation that's on our list right now. I think she's going to join about 3:30. So we'll save that one for later on. But yeah, we can get started in whatever order the rest of you want to. Jim, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, I got an email from her a little bit ago. She might be a little bit later than that. So they had a meeting with our folks from the MVA, and she was hoping to get out of that around 3:30, but it might be closer to 4. But, and the reason why we wanted to invite Morgan is because our secretary's office had some revision to the language. They wanted to add some specific stuff. And so, we wanted her to be around in case people have a question about that or just want to hear kind of the reasoning behind it. So.
Really appreciate that, Jim. Thank you. And just a final note before we go into the recommendations. So we have a maximum of 4 recommendations that we can put forward. We're not required to put forward the full amount. So if it turns out that only 3 or even fewer recommendations end up passing, that's okay. We just can't have more than 4. And right now we're at 4. So, I don't think that we're in much risk of going over, but I just want everyone to be aware that it's a maximum, but doesn't have to be 4 recommendations.
So, Jared, do you want to pull them up and share screen in a working document? And just to summarize and remind everybody, we had 4. The first one on the list was related to climate education and a climate literacy seal, and climate readiness for students graduating from Maryland schools. The second one was to recommend formal partnership among a multitude of agencies and institutions in supporting the climate teach-in. The third one was to add language to empower public utilities like BGE and Pepco to add a language to their bills to customers about the Empower program. And the last one, which we'll talk about last, was focused on utilizing advertising space that is already incorporated into the Maryland Transit MDOT's various transit and mass transit like facilities and vehicles to encourage EV purchase. So I think we should just start at the top.
And it's important to note that all these recommendations are exactly what our working group stands for. All of them either cover something with education, outreach and communication, even though I said it, out of order.
Mhm.
And I know we got some feedback from, I don't think she's on the call yet, is she?
Jennifer.
Yeah. And well, we don't have to discuss that right now, but I know there were some, I guess, questions about how impactful some of these recommendations are as far as, lowering the greenhouse gas emissions and whatnot. But again, keeping in mind that our specific role is to educate and communicate and provide outreach. So sometimes those may not be as directly impactful right away, but
Mhm.
that's pretty much, again, what we're here for. Other work groups have more of that role. So I kind of want to put that out there first.
Well, and we are, although we've talked about it year over year about, a true climate action campaign, we have not been successful, and that would literally be the most effective way to, call Marylanders to action, to educate them on the decisions that they can make. But we have not been successful in that. So we are where we are. Tristan's got her hand up. What's up, Tristan?
Okay, something that I just caught today in our first sentence, it's a really long sentence.
Yes.
Okay, so the governor should direct MSDE and state agencies to support a coordinated statewide blah, 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 blah initiative. It makes me feel like, oh, it's already existing and it just needs our support, which is not the case. So
Okay.
I'm wondering if we could find a better word for support.
Maybe initiate?
Well, yeah, or create.
Yeah.
Develop.
And I will say that we had some offline discussions with OLP since our last meeting, and learned a little bit more about the environmental literacy standards and how those work, and how climate is just a little incorporated in that. It's really not a large part of the environmental literacy standards specifically called out. So I almost wonder whether we should address that here as well. That climate, because apparently didn't they say that the literacy standards needed to be reviewed in 2028?
I think so.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I think we should, I am making a recommendation that we add to this, that when they conduct that review, that they review with an eye towards adding climate literacy as part of environmental literacy. Go ahead, Laura.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Amy. I think we've been having conversations about environmental literacy and climate literacy. Karen Mullen has written a really nice paper that shows the kind of intersection between the two, because environmental literacy actually is like a foundation towards that climate literacy. And what we don't want is to put all of our efforts into climate literacy when we have actually put a lot into environmental literacy. So I do feel and agree that it is important for us to look at that new standard evaluation, which I don't think is 2028. I think it might be before then, but anyway, and really, because climate education was in the first standards, and they were removed because it was felt that that was duplicating what was in the NGSS, Next Generation Science Standards. So I do strongly agree that the climate literacy should be in that environmental literacy. That would give us a stronger position, and using networks and strategies that are already in place with the environmental literacy, which doesn't mean that that shouldn't be strengthened. And in fact, the climate literacy might strengthen that too. So anyway.
Yeah, and I just checked the next mandated regulatory evaluation cycle puts them up for comprehensive review by or before 2028.
Yeah. Because I think it's like every 5 years, and it's been 5 years. So
It's every 8 years, it says.
every 8.
It
Okay.
says. So, it says that MSDE tries to do it every 5 years, but legislatively it's required every 8. Go, Tristan.
Okay, if it's every 5 and we think that's going to happen soon, then I'm on board with putting it in here. My concern with it being possibly by 2028, we're going to recommend this now. By 2028, nobody's looking back at this. It's not going to happen. Everyone will have forgotten. I'm worried that it's just going to disappear.
Well, my concern is if we wait a year, it is literally coming out in December of 2027, which is probably well into the review cycle.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Right.
that's fair.
Yeah, I agree. I'm thinking we're already kind of pushing it, to be honest. So
Yeah.
I think we definitely should put it in this year's recommendation so we can start planning that process for 2028.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that if the wording is such so that it makes it clear that this is what we're doing and why we're doing it, I think this would be the year to do it, because that would give impetus to the work that needs to be done. And I believe that, yeah, I know that there are people talking about the environmental literacy standard review now. So anyway, I think it's good timing, Tristan, actually.
Okay, Anne, you have your hand up.
Yeah, Laura, I would agree, and Tristan as well. I think it is important to include it. The other piece, and we have spoken with several elected officials as a side note, and there is a tremendous amount of support for this recommendation number 1. The one thing that has come across is that we somehow with the verbiage, and I'm not a wordsmith, people, but here it is. If we can write in, like, the goal is somewhere in there to decrease the workload of the LEA to make this a little easier, because already they're dealing with the seal of biliteracy. They will be dealing with the seal of civic excellence next year. And so we just want to create an awareness that folks who are in this position are going to have a lot to manage.
I
Laura?
was looking at the cost that Ms. Mazzari had on her document, I believe it was, although they seem to be running together, so it could have been that final document. And it said low cost, and I looked at the things that were on there, and I don't think those are really low cost. The environmental literacy standards were passed without any funding. And I can tell you that there is a cost for that, and we're still dealing with it. It really was expected and has been rolled into current practices. And there was no additional money or grant money was shifted in that direction. I think that saying that there is no cost or low cost diminishes the actual cost of what that would entail. And I think we need to be a little more realistic to say that there would be an expectation of LEAs to figure out, and I am also not a wordsmith, but to figure out like what of this they could do or how they could, I think there's a lot here, and actually I don't think all of that is represented in what we've written, because the Board of Education is going to have to approve any seal of literacy. And I just think we haven't quite got the process on there. It's one thing to have legislators vote on it, but there's a lot of like advocating and promoting that has to go on within the Board of Education and Maryland State Department of Education and the LEAs that would actually in the end be the entities that would be implementing this?
Okay, so we've had a discussion of cost. We've had a discussion of the Maryland environmental literacy standards, which are not part of this, and adding that to it. It seems like we have quite a bit of support for that. We've also noted that in some way we have to justify this through reduced workload on the LEAs, which I'm not sure we can actually do when we're adding something. Thank you for the and possibly even suggesting a seal, which would be another burden. So any thoughts or suggestions for language change? Laura?
Could the recommendation be that some entity, and maybe it's ECO and OLP, look at, and work with some of the LEAs to figure out what that could look like? I don't know. I mean, that's wishy-washy, and I don't know that that's something you put into legislation, but it just seems to me like we haven't actually fully researched this to be able to make this recommendation.
Go ahead, Jared.
Yeah, just pointing out that the recommendations that go through this commission process are to the governor and the executive agencies and to the General Assembly. So recommendations that would direct ECO or OLP to do work that we might already be undertaking doesn't need to go through this process. You know, we can just do that stuff, but that wouldn't necessarily have a place in our set of recommendations.
So the
Just
question,
a clarification, I'm sorry. So that means it could be put into our work plan, Jared?
yes.
I mean, if there's work that wants to be undertaken by ECO and OLP or in some coordination with each other, absolutely, but just is not part of our recommendations to the governor and the General Assembly. But yeah, it doesn't mean that it precludes us from doing it separately.
So I'll weigh in with my opinion, which is I think that the research on the climate literacy seal and working with LEAs and OLP, I think we could put that into our own work plan and then make it a formal recommendation next year. I just don't feel like there's enough there to make a formal recommendation this year. I agree with Laura. But I do feel like the time is right to talk about the environmental literacy standards. I really do. I think if we don't do it this year, it's not going to be a part of the process.
I agree.
Sorry, are we talking about pausing on the literacy seal and switching over to the curriculum or the oh my gosh, what is the word I'm looking for?
Environmental literacy.
Update. Thank you. The update of the environmental literacy standards.
Yeah, and I think the language is still similar. I think the language could be very similar.
I can agree with that. Stronger argument for that anyway, really. So
Any ideas for exact language there that I can start typing?
So I mean, I'm not wordsmithing here, but I just have, the governor should direct MSDE to add climate literacy, or that's the part I haven't flushed out, as part of the mandatory 2028 review of the Maryland environmental literacy standards.
If you have that language and you want to put it in the chat, I can just copy and paste that right in.
All right, hold on. Just put this in the chat. There's the chat. Okay.
Does anybody have any suggestions on that language?
I do have a question about it actually. And maybe Laura might be able to weigh in on this, but I guess, so is there nothing mentioning climate literacy at all in the current environmental literacy standards?
Climate is mentioned once in one appendix. The
Uh-huh.
word climate is mentioned once.
Yeah, and
So,
it's
Okay.
also true that the environment, there's the science standards, which I think are more
That's right.
robust than that.
Right.
But
Right.
that's a separate avenue. So this would be outside of the science classroom. Tristan.
I just the one little wordsmith edit about and relevant state agencies. I think MSDE is,
Yes,
I believe MSDE is the only one.
it's just
Okay.
MSDE. Yeah.
Mhm.
Do we have any other adjustments to this?
Oh, I wanted to keep that last section about
Okay, this
leveraging
section here.
partnerships,
Okay, absolutely.
as long as we feel okay about that. Do we want to put ourselves on that list?
Yeah.
No.
Everybody else can do it. Fine.
Right. And I'm changing. So it shouldn't be the initiative. It should be the update. Um, hold on.
Okay, for those of us that are auditory listener or learners, the governor should direct MSDE to add climate literacy as part of the mandatory 2028 review of the Maryland Environmental Literacy Standards. The update should leverage partnerships with existing state initiatives like the Outdoor Learning Partnership, higher education, maybe institutions,
Yeah.
Maryland nonprofits, and community organizations to maximize impact.
And I changed the end. I said to maximize climate readiness impact in order to prepare students for Maryland's future.
Okay.
I can put that in the chat too.
So what was the last part of the sentence? To prepare Marylanders?
I just put it in the chat.
Okay.
Now, I don't know how in any way this reduces the workload on LEAs. I really don't. I don't.
If I might offer that, I think that providing the recommendation on this is the direction that MSDE should take, and that the governor should direct MSDE to do this. That is more within ECO's purview. I think that the exact details of how that's achieved is something to be figured out in that process. So maybe it's not something that needs to be here, but an important element during that consideration. Laura.
I would say that the advantage to this is that they already have to work with the environmental literacy standards, and having that and having this be a part of that it will be rolled into that. So they do reviews of curriculum quite often. And so and so that would be part of that process. The other thing that is nice is that the environmental literacy is across disciplines, and that this would mean that the climate literacy would also be across disciplines, and not just focused on the science piece.
I might
Well, and I
go ahead. Amy.
go ahead.
I was just going to say that by saying add and exclusively just that word, I think that it's kind of ambiguous to what degree we're trying to incorporate. I might suggest maybe instead of add, say direct MSD to robustly incorporate, or some language that maybe is a little stronger than just add, because that could be
Okay.
incorporated as being just to a small degree.
Karen,
Do we
you
like that
have
language?
I agree.
Let me, yeah, I agree. I think Karen Mullen may have, Karen, do you have words that you could pull from your document to put in there that makes that stronger?
Laura, you're really breaking up a lot, by the way.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's okay, Laura. I love the idea of having something more. I'll look at my document, but I think Jared, you're absolutely right. Like add is too subtle. Like should directly strengthen connections or something like that. Robustly incorporate. I'll brainstorm some things, but I like that.
I co-piloted it. So here's some options from Copilot to fully integrate climate literacy as part of the 2028 review, to embed climate literacy throughout, to strengthen it. Now I know strengthen I don't like because it's not there. To make climate literacy a core component of, but I don't like that either because it feels like a takeover. So
What were the first two you said? Because those both
fully
sound good.
integrate was the first one.
Fully integrate. I like fully integrate.
Yeah,
There was
I'm
a
with
second
that.
one too.
That was just embed.
Oh yeah, fully integrate is nice.
It also gives like a cross-curricular feel to me, which I think
Yes.
is definitely something we want to encourage.
Okay, so when we say the review of the Maryland Environmental Literacy Standards, and forgive me if this was already stated, so this goes hand in hand with the curriculum review? The Maryland
Yes.
Environmental Literacy, so it always goes on at the same time?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I made a small edit to the end there to just
Yeah.
reorganize Maryland.
Okay. I like it.
And
I think the timing of this one is correct.
Mm-hmm.
I also think that it will point out to the readers of the report that, oh my gosh, those standards didn't include climate, which
Yeah,
I'm
good point.
sure a lot of people may have assumed that it did.
Because they should have, but yeah.
Amy and Jabari, it's also up to you how you want to handle the order of voting here. So, we could vote as we go, finish a recommendation, take it to a vote, or we could move through all of these and then vote at the very end. Up to you all.
Do we have a quorum, Jared?
We do, just barely.
Okay.
But barely
I
counts.
think-
So I say
I
let's
think-
do it as we go along. Amy, what do you think?
I
Yeah.
am 100% behind you there. Let's vote.
Okay.
Oh,
Elizabeth.
Elizabeth has her hand up.
Yes. So I'm looking at this revision, and if I were reading it, I am wondering maybe a couple of things. As an educator, what becomes of this? What does this look like? What's the outcome, the product, that sort of thing. And two, no, actually, I think you answered number two. So yeah, I'm just wondering, where does this go? When we say fully integrate, do we need to specify, do we need to be more detailed as to like what the outcomes are?
I might offer that, the second part of this.
I don't think
saying-
so.
Yeah, just that the second part of this where we talk about the coordination with the OLP and other institutions, that I think that implies that there's a process that will come from this where we can develop a lot of those details. It's easy to get recommendations being a little too long, trying to incorporate every little bit. So we need to be balanced between detail and just general direction.
Mhm.
I was just gonna say, I agree, Jared. That's great.
Other-
And at the end of the day, it's kind of all really subjective if you really think about it. I mean, fully integrate could really mean different things, but I think that's still kind of getting that strong point, you know, fully integrated, as you said, across all disciplines. Yeah, and to your point, Jared, maybe not including too much more detail. Let MSD figure that part out.
Do we want to add the word across disciplines after fully integrate climate literacy across disciplines as part of?
We could say fully integrate interdisciplinary climate literacy.
I don't know, it doesn't feel the same to me. That doesn't land the same to me.
Okay, so what's the
I
language?
would say across disciplines it sounds right. And I think to address the question from Elizabeth, what it seems to me this directive is saying is it's directing MSDE to say to frontline climate literacy as being very important, right? And to integrate it within all of its systems. So so it really is it's just pushing and elevating climate literacy within those existing systems, which will help support climate literacy across the discipline. So I think it's the less specific, I think right now works, because there are systems in place right now that should be elevating climate literacy, and this will help push that.
Yeah, thank you, Karen, for adding that. Yeah, I'm just thinking about the unintended consequences. How little or how much, you know, will it be fully integrated? What will that look like? Will there be resources, as Laura mentioned earlier in the conversation, that go with this? For you know, school districts across the state to be successful, you know, what will that look like? And I default to the group's wisdom.
Yeah, and honestly, Elizabeth, I understand, but I also know that we cannot, sadly, we are not educated enough to anticipate some of those unexpected consequences. At least I am not. That's kind of why MSDE needs to do it, right? They know, and they can integrate it in a way that works best for the LEAs and the Maryland school systems, I think. I don't want to tell them necessarily how to do their job.
I would also like to point out to everybody that for the sake of quorum, we need to have 9 members voting. And I think currently we have 13 in the call. And I know some people are going to have to drop off at 4 p.m. So just for the sake of voting, you know, we might want
Let's vote.
Let's do it.
Okay, everyone in favor of this recommendation in its current form, please use your, I don't know, what, hand raise.
Yeah, use the hand
raise
raise.
your hand with the little button.
And remember, if you're not a member, please do not raise your hand. Okay, I see 9-4. And okay.
Everybody needs to lower their hand, I guess.
Oh, I see. Okay, so we jumped up a little bit. I think I saw 10 total.
Okay. So I think we're good on that one. I think we've hit the.
Yeah, the recommendation passes. Like, out of 13 members that could have voted that are on the call, 10 is for sure passing.
Okay. All right, let's move on to recommendation number 2, the Maryland Climate Teaching.
Yeah, hopefully.
So see, we did get some feedback on this one as well. Let's see.
Which feedback are you looking at, Amy?
I'm looking at Jeff's
Okay.
email as well as Jen's.
I see that Donald has his hand raised as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Donald.
Could also still be up from voting.
If you are talking, you're on mute. Okay,
I'm just going to assume. Yep. Commissioner Mizrahi, hello.
Yes, I'm curious, have we formally asked them to partner with the Teach in the past? what has that looked like and what are we asking them to do as partners? Because I'm wondering if we need the governor to direct or if we could just ask them politely in a letter for a series of things they could do to help.
So we have asked, MDE does help us as they can. So does DNR as they can with resources when they have it available. MSDE's help has been contingent on having their environmental coordinator position full. And how much that person wants to dedicate it. There's really not been any kind of consistency from year to year. There certainly isn't awareness at the administrative level, I would say.
And if there is or was, what would be different? What are you looking for them? Because these are partner with is very vague to me.
Well, each of these institutions has resources and communication channels to offer that we would like to use. And that would be in support of getting this out there to a wider audience in terms of, a larger geographic coverage, a larger demographic coverage. Because we've really had success with K through 12. We need to expand with more nonprofits, with more community-based organizations, with more of our state institution network, which our university network barely participates.
So are you looking for them to put their logo on the event and then
No.
send it through their official channels?
I'm looking for them to send it through their official channels. I'm not looking for their logo. These aren't sponsors. These are folks that are supporting the event.
So it sounds like what we're really asking for is primarily communication. That's the main aspect we're asking for these agencies.
I would say communication, but also I could easily see Outdoor Learning Partnership, MDE, DNR, and even and especially University of Maryland offering lesson plans or suggestions, or these are educational resources. They have educational resources.
So then and correct me if I'm wrong, Jennifer, are you suggesting that maybe we should add in a few things that we're asking, like specific things that we're asking?
Yes, I think this is very vague.
So, well, you think we should maybe just add, we can always follow up with additional things. And maybe if we put those things, we're asking for support with communication, we're asking for support with resources or providing resources. We could add maybe a couple of those things.
Yeah, we could do that. Let me pull up an empty Word doc and wordsmith.
I'm also, I think Jennifer brings up a really good point. Do we need the governor to say this, or do we want to have a specific ask? Obviously I'm representing DNR, but if I knew that, I could bring a specific ask to my supervisor, hey, I got to compile a bunch of that might also work.
We don't need a recommendation for that. We should all be doing it.
It seems like something the subcabinet on climate change might be the better place for this.
Okay.
Just a thought.
And we are unsure whether the subcabinet on climate is even aware of the teach-in.
Well, maybe that's a good thing then, Amy, in terms of the language here, is that they would become aware of it.
Yeah.
I also think that, after working group and before to support the growth, that would be a good place to put those actions like communications of, and I can't remember if there was another one, but anyway, through their agencies and networks, something.
I'm writing.
But I think, Amy, if that group doesn't know about the climate teach-in, then this recommendation, it would help with that. And Jennifer, would it also, like, just by making the recommendation to the commission and them talking about it, even if it weren't accepted, would that be something we might hear? Oh, this is something, you know, important that's being done. We should find out more about it, or no?
You're on mute, Jennifer.
I felt that the presentation that was done to the full commission on how the climate teach-in went this year educated the commission about its importance and its growth. I mean, there was a beautiful presentation, you know, that was just made at the commission that did help them understand what this was. Another thing is that that to formally with the climate teach-in, you know, the teach-in is very vague in terms of what you're teaching. And it's just a thought that ChatGPT had, was that the teach-in should give them specific actions that people can take to help, you know, build sustainability or build resiliency. It's just something to think about for the teach-in for the future.
Yeah, and I will say we did the vagueness with intention, right? Because we didn't want to create a barrier to participation, and we got a lot of feedback on we needed to give the LEAs as much leeway to do it however they were doing it. Like, we, again, not an overburden to them. We can't ask them to do something different. So that was intentional. Hold on, I wrote some text. Looks like there's some text. Oh, here we go. Okay. Take a look at that and tell me what you think. Hold on, I have to grab this call. I'll be right back.
Okay.
I might suggest that we don't need to offer that the governor should work with the sub-cabinet. It is the governor's sub-cabinet. So I think that you could just direct to the sub-cabinet directly, as opposed to that's secondary there.
Yeah, but are we directing the sub-cabinet to direct?
No, I think that, you know, it would be, you know, the governor's sub-cabinet should.
Okay, gotcha.
I know the heart of this. I know what we're trying to get. I feel a little uncomfortable as our representative from DNR that we're asking somebody to have my state agency participate in eco, because I'm like, but I am. So like, I just don't, I don't, it just doesn't feel there yet.
Okay.
I
And
mean, something else that I might offer.
I guess my personal question is like, is there something more that I'm supposed to be doing that I'm not?
I mean, I would like to see, the outcome that I would like to see from this is awareness and commitment of the climate teach-in at the administrators level, which we do not have.
And I think it's also about leveraging communication resources. I mean, I think that that's really the biggest outcome for the agency involvement is, you know, to use them and their existing platforms to distribute to, you know, a wider range of Marylanders. I mean, in my opinion, I think the communications aspect is really the core of the ask for the state agencies. I mean, to Tristan's point, though, and I think that Commissioner Mizrahi said something similar, is that, you know, the vagueness of the teach-in, you know, in a way is almost its strength. You know, the fact that we have some maneuverability. if you remember, an earlier recommendation had to do with directing the agencies to take direct control of the teach-in, and there was some resistance to that from leadership, not because they didn't support the teach-in, but because they felt that by taking direct ownership, it would create additional red tape that would constrain the effectiveness of this program. And I think that, there's the potential for that to happen through this language as well, by having the governor say, the agencies have to directly sign on to this, that could have a similar impact. I'm not saying that it will exactly, but something to consider is that, its seat within ECO and the grassroots nature are in some ways why it's been so effective.
Very true.
And in terms of, have we approached the agencies directly? And we have a relationship with a lot of them. One of the big hurdles has been MSDE, but as you noted, Amy, that had to do with just we didn't have somebody in the seat. And Michael has been very forthcoming about, being involved in this process. So, we do have support from USM. We don't have a lot of relationship with, but the rest of these agencies, we do have representatives from that are already involved. So.
Yeah, but also keep in mind that, Michael is taking Zach's position. We also had Peyton before. We don't know if he's going to have a Peyton. So he, we don't know his available bandwidth. But I'm not saying, I'm not convinced we can rely on that. No slight to him at all, but he's only one person, and only, all of us have, there's only so many things we can function on. Again, if his administration does not feel like this is a priority, this will fall to the bottom of the list.
Right.
That's my point.
But back to what I was saying at the beginning about how I think that the communications is kind of the core element. I might suggest that if there is a directive here, that it would be that the state agencies should have one of their communications professionals committed to being involved. I mean, that might be an easy, direct way to get agency buy-in without maybe overcomplicating.
So just go the comms route, basically, for each agency. Jared.
I think that's the goal is primarily to get the comms strength that the agencies offer. I mean, we already have, Tristan and Michael and Stephanie and all the other wonderful people that have been involved in this process that are on those other groups that, we're not missing involvement from them, but there's just a specific element that we really want that we are missing. And that is, a direct line to their communications outreach.
Right.
I don't think that there are tremendous other asks that we have for them across agencies. I mean, maybe individual, we might want something specifically, but
yeah,
it's mostly about them distributing our emails.
Promotion. So then,
yeah.
I mean, I agree with both. So I agree with you, Jared, that I think that is a primary, as I mentioned earlier, the primary things that we're looking for is really the communication aspect of promotion. But there are some other things that we'll like. However, to your point, I think if we just lead with communication and not add too much to the recommendation, but just enough where we are being a little bit more specific. To Jennifer's point, we're not just saying partner with, we're saying partner with primarily for promotion and communications, then I think the other things will kind of fall into place.
So if you look at, I put something in the chat, it does include communications and outreach. I did include planning and educational resources, but
which I mean can also be included. I mean, I'm not suggesting that it needs to be excluded, but I think the core of this has to do with the communications.
Yeah, I mean, because it could generate more questions if we include all of those things. Because like, what educational resources really? What are we really asking for when we say educational resources?
Oh, I mean, my vision is educational resources. I mean, we did a webinar for teachers this year, like University of Maryland could do a webinar for professors with their own professors teaching them, which means they're developing the educational resources. They're offering things they're already using as suggestions. That's where I'm coming from.
Mhm.
But, you know, we don't necessarily have to reach for the sky on this for sure. Go ahead, Laura.
I think that developing educational resources is tricky language, because as you said, they probably already have them, and they can bring them in. So I do like the idea of somehow figuring out, but this may be that part that's in conversation once this. I agree the focus should be on communications. I agree with Tristan that there are discussions that we could have differently, but some of it is like higher ed. They're a member of the OLP, but you know, asking them to do a webinar and having a teacher do that. I mean, on the other hand, you know, I'm just throwing it out there. Maybe Mayo could support a webinar, or we do webinars as ECO, and we could ask a professor that is in our network to do something and then promote it that way. So there are things maybe we haven't tried.
Oh yeah.
You know, but I do think that there's strength in the recommendation with the communication piece in there, and getting more kind of visibility towards the teach-in.
Okay. So maybe just, you know, to support communication and outreach in growing the Maryland climate teach-in.
That's what I expect.
Mhm.
Okay, go for it.
Okay, so let's look at the language here. So the governor should direct state agencies and initiatives, including MDE, DNR, MSG, the USM, and OLP. Do we want to say including, you know, but not limited to, or are we, you know, wanting to keep it to that group?
Or do you just want to say such as?
Yeah, I would say such as.
Okay, I like that.
And remember, we're saying the governor's sub cabinet, right?
Yeah, it's the governor's sub-cabinet on climate.
Okay. To formally partner with the Commission's Eco Working Group to support. What was
Well,
the?
could we say, or support growth of the Maryland climate teaching through communication and outreach? Would it-
I put to support communication and outreach in order, to work with, to partner with, and to support communication and outreach in order to grow participation of the Maryland climate teaching,
Okay.
or grow participation in the Maryland climate teaching.
I don't know if Jennifer's still on the call, but I'm the governor's sub cabinet. I mean, I think that the benefit of the governor's sub cabinet as a place for this conversation is just that all of the agencies are already in the same room. But
Yeah,
I
me
don't know
too.
if they actually. I mean, they make recommendations themselves to the. I mean, it feels like, you know, we're just telling another advisory body to then make another recommendation. But if I understand how that functions, I don't know if Jennifer's still on the call and wants to chime
I'm
in
here.
about that.
I'm here. What were you suggesting the words change to?
It's just that, like, is it the governor's sub cabinet that would be making this direction, or would it be that the governor's sub cabinet would then advise the governor to then direct the agencies? Like, are we adding in an intermediary that's not necessary?
Well, one thing you could do, Jared, as staff, and I don't know if that's okay with you, is for you to shoot an email to Megan over there and ask her what's the best way to go about it. She generally sits in on our climate commission calls so that she could suggest alternative language at the climate commission meeting.
I mean, we can absolutely make that connection.
So Jennifer,
But then we
Oh.
would have to vote, I don't know, through email then?
I mean, like looking at the amount of time that we have left and
Yeah.
that we're still halfway through recommendations, I think it's likely that partially we might move to, we'll see. I know that
No,
Just
what
Amy-
making sure I'm
I'm
clear on.
suggesting, Jared, is approve it as is, but then give Megan a nice heads up so that at the meeting of the commission, when they review it, she might offer an amendment, because that typically happens with some of them where somebody offers an amendment and then Jabari and Amy could say whether that's a friendly amendment or not.
that makes sense. So is there, for anybody that would be voting, would it change your vote whether or not it said governor versus governor sub-cabinet on climate? Would it make a difference to you in how you're voting?
definitely not for me.
Nope.
No,
Okay, then I might suggest that we move forward with her suggestion and vote on this and then maybe amend based on the response from Megan Ulrich.
Yeah, I agree.
I have 2 minutes. I have less than 2 minutes left. So let's vote on this one so I
Yep,
can get
we
my
need your
vote
vote.
Yep, so if you are supporting, please raise your hand. Okay, we have 7-4. Do we have any against? Yep. Everyone put your hands down, please.
Jared,
Jim, just
I'm
want to
a
confirm
four.
that
I'm
you're
sorry, I was just
raising-
slow.
Sorry, Laura?
I'm a four.
Okay,
I'm
thank
sorry,
you.
I was slow.
Understood, that's 8-4. And Jim, you're an against?
I think she's still here.
Jim,
Oh,
am I
yeah.
correct that your hand is up for against, not for?
Maybe she stepped away.
Okay,
I didn't
You're
realize
a-
my
oh.
hand was up. I apologize. I don't vote. I'm not.
No, no,
No,
I
no.
think he's asking
it
about
wasn't you. I'm
Jim.
asking Jim Joyner. He
Oh,
had his
sorry.
hand up. I wasn't sure if that was for or against.
oh, I'm sorry. Yes, mine was 4. I
Four.
apologize.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, then that puts
I
us
thought you
at,
said Jan. I thought you said Jan.
I did
I'm
too.
sorry.
oh, okay, my apologies. My apologies. So that puts us at 9-4, which the recommendation passes.
Okay. So we probably would not be able to vote on the remaining 2 recommendations at this time on the
Well,
meeting.
let
Is
me
that
just
correct?
check. Let me check quorum and make sure that we have, because we need to have 9 members in order to vote currently. So we
Right.
have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We no longer have quorum. Yep, with Amy
Okay.
leaving, we no longer have quorum. So we can continue to debate these recommendations, but for recommendations 3 and 4, we are going to have to vote via email.
Okay. And I think I also have about 15 minutes. So let's go ahead to the recommendation number 3 then. And I'll just read it for those. This basically involves how we deal with the Public Service Commission. We're asking them to require utilities participating in the Empower Maryland to use evidence-based multi-channel outreach and increase frequency and diversity of communications to grow awareness of available rebates, incentives, and energy saving programs. Second part of that is, and Jim, I do see your hand. The PSC should require utilities to include a readable and highly visible statement on customer bills. Example, Empower Maryland helps customers save energy and lower utility bills. Historically, the program has delivered more than $2 in benefits for every $1 invested. Learn about available rebates, incentives, and energy saving programs at blank web link.
And just a reminder to everybody that the language here was brought by Tunde, who is the manager for the Empower program at MEA, who did sign off on this language.
Yeah, thanks for that reminder, Jared. Jim, you had a comment or question?
Yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge that my colleague Morgan Ellis has joined us from MDOT. So I just wanted to acknowledge that she is now here when we get to item 4.
Okay.
Thanks, Jim. Do we have any comments on recommendation 3? Any amendments or suggestions? Hearing none.
Oh,
Are
we
we
got
ready
you,
to vote on
Jennifer.
this recommendation?
Did you have your hand up,
I have
Jennifer?
to say I strongly support this. It would be really important for greenhouse gas reduction. Additionally, several legislators, including Mark Corman, who chairs a key committee, have said that this would be a helpful thing to have. And I think it could be really perhaps our most important contribution as a task force here.
Okay. Thank you for that comment.
Do we have any other? Yep, Laura.
I just wanted to say, Jennifer, that I really appreciated the document that you created, and I agree with you.
Okay.
Thanks, Laura. Do we have any comments?
Now, question, when we leave the web address blank, where is that going to come from? Them? I mean, who would provide that?
So I think that, you know, this is suggested language that the PSC would then put into their bill, and I think that they probably know which address they would want to use for that. You know, this language would of course be up to the PSC if they wanted to keep it as is or make changes. So I don't think to worry specifically about if we have the exact web address. But that's the direction that they're going.
Right. I'm good with this. Any other questions, comments? Okay. Looks like we like this one.
Great. Unfortunately, we can't vote.
Right. But this
we
recommendation
can.
will stay the same. And I guess we'll have to send this out by email as the way that it is.
That's correct.
All right.
Jared, are you allowed to take votes from the people who are here and then do the rest by email?
We could do that. I mean, I think that it might be cleaner to do it all in one forum. But Jabari as co-chair, no, that's up to you how you'd like to handle voting.
Good point. I think I agree. I think probably easier we just put it out to the group for everybody to vote at one time. It's probably just easier that way. Instead of try to track who voted here, and then So we'll just send it out by email, hopefully. Okay. Yeah. So our last recommendation, this is actually one that deals with transportation and electric vehicles primarily. So the recommendation reads, the Maryland Department of Transportation should include educational messaging promoting the benefits of purchasing electric vehicles on road signage, bus stops, train stations, light rail and mark cars, online resources, and on other public-facing material. There's alternative language. However, well, I'll go ahead and read that. The Maryland Department of Transportation should work to include educational messaging promoting the benefits, in parentheses, reduction of air pollution, cost savings, enhanced passenger and driver experiences, and no tailpipe emissions of electric vehicles, battery electric buses, and electrified transportation on road signage, bus stops, train stations, light rail, marked cars, online resources, and on other public-facing materials. That's a lot.
And we have Morgan Ellis here from MDOT, who has graciously offered to offer some commentary about this amendment. And welcome, Morgan.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. Also, a shout out to James, who's been really helpful on the MDOT side with bringing. I sit on the mitigation working group, so it's been nice to have a partner on the eco working group to bring some things together. So MDOT would like to propose some alternative language, mainly for, I think, broadening the awareness specifically of what MDOT has done through all of our modal administrations for the electrification of transportation. So I think, promoting some of the benefits of our battery electric buses, our MARC trains, some of these things that are broader in the world of transportation, not just passenger EVs. We wanted to be able to highlight some of those benefits, potentially, again, budgets pending, but communications, depending on that mode of transportation. So, highlighting our bus work, potentially in our fleets or other public facing materials, just making it a bit more of a comprehensive view related to transportation not just simply as it relates to passenger electric vehicles. Mm-hmm. That's sort of the orientation and framing behind this particular modification for alternative language.
Yep, that makes sense.
Thanks, Morgan.
Well, no, to your point, Morgan, I was going to say, and you correct me if I'm incorrectly using the verbiage, but when we say electrified transportation, does that automatically include electric buses and personal electric vehicles?
Um,
The way that you all use the language?
I mean, I guess when, so electrified transportation, I think that, when I use it, but this is the world that I live in every day. I think I'm also working to be more intentional when I'm focused on, my mass transit and the zero emission buses that MTA is doing. I make sure to call out like those specifics only because I don't know that the general population, as I'm working to spread information and awareness about, these different forms of transportation, I don't know that they're naturally going to draw the conclusion between an EV and, the 34 buses that we just got online, right?
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
it's more of just like sort of being very intentional, and perhaps it could be tailored to the mode, right? When this was also raised, it was, we didn't want to promote single occupancy vehicles on the MARC line or in our bus system, right? So
Right.
it could even be more tailored tailored targeted communications. Like if we're on the bus, it's a quieter experience. You're breathing easier, right? So it could be more tailored along those lines.
Okay.
Right. And I would just weigh in on that because what, when Morgan suggested adding this, it struck me that way too, that it kind of directs us to be more vehicle appropriate based on where we're talking about putting these things.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that makes sense.
So I had a couple of questions about the suggested language. So, but by including to the extent possible, it's, hedging your bets a little bit. I'm curious, what the intention behind that inclusion is.
Budget.
And yeah, well, it's not. Yeah, I was just going to say, and that was, and I kind of felt like we might need to do that, and the reason was one, budget, but also because there are some things that we're not able to do. For instance, I mean, one of the things when we first started talking about this was, could we use some of our VMS messages, which is those, overhead signs that we have on highways for messaging, and we're not allowed to do that. That's kind of regulated by federal highway, and we can only use those for safety messages. And then when it comes to other types of road signage, there's a uniform code that we have to follow from the feds that would dictate to us some of the content and the way that we could present it. So that's why I feel like we need to hedge our bet a little bit on that, to say that we want to do what we can do, but there's going to be some things that we can't.
Sure. I mean, would that not kind of be inherent just by, not including that sentence though? I mean, isn't it already kind of an expectation that it's, I'm just concerned that, by including this language, it reads that, you're not as engaged with it. I think that, that's just my perception.
That's my opinion too. So I definitely do understand what you're saying about that, Jim and Morgan. I think though, when we talk about recommendations, we do want to be pretty strong as much as possible. And so we realize there's certain things outside of your control, but to Jared's point, I think it's probably something that we don't necessarily have to say. I think it should probably start off with the Maryland Department of Transportation should work too. And whatever that work can include and doesn't include, then that's going to be up to MDOT. But I think we should just start off that way. Make it a stronger recommendation.
So otherwise, are we comfortable absorbing the MDOT alternative language over the existing text, or do we want to, move forward with both? Because we have to vote on these. So would we want to provide two different versions to vote on, or would we want to then say, okay, we're moving forward with MDOT's language now, and we'll just vote on that one? Jabari, do you have an opinion there?
I think we should go with the alternative language, unless anybody has any issues with it. Then I think we should stick to that one recommendation and put that out there. Are there any or were there any problems or questions about that? So the only other thing that I would change, and I think Morgan, you kind of mentioned this, maybe because I don't want to be repetitive with the wording. So if we mention personal electric vehicles and electrified or other modes of electrified transportation or something like that, does that make sense if we change that wording to that? Because electric buses should be included in electrified transportation. Is that correct? The personal electric vehicles could be a separate category. So I don't think we need to say electric vehicles and electric buses and electrified transportation.
I will let the committee talk.
Okay. Okay.
Kristen?
When I initially read this recommendation, I kind of thought it was in promotion of buying electric vehicles. Like, hey, saves money, saves air pollution. When you buy your next car, think electric.
Yeah.
Now I'm kind of reading it as like, we want people to recognize that the new buses that we made, the changes in transportation that we've made are benefiting. It's sort of like a retroactive sort of thing. I guess I'm kind of losing the intent of the recommendation.
That's a great point. Rosemary?
I hope you can hear me. Sorry, I'm in transit.
We can hear you.
I sort of read it as like what Tristan was just saying, a retro celebration, but for the purposes of norming and like creating comfort and desirability for future. So I really like it just as worded. I think if people understand what we've done so far, the idea is then they want to perpetuate it.
And
which I'm totally fine with. I want to make sure that that's the recommendation we're trying to put forward. It does feel a little, I don't know. It seems a little silly to me that we should tell MDOT to celebrate its wins. But if they need us to do that for whatever reason, then I can get on board with it.
I mean, I see this as there's two elements to this. You know, because we talked about how there's specific kinds of advertising for the different modes of transportation we're talking about here. I think that there's really two elements that we're trying to hone in on. I think that whoever mentioned it was absolutely right that one of the goals here is to promote EV purchasing of single capacity EV vehicles, but then it's also to celebrate and promote the other forms of electrified transportation like buses and trains that are also a great thing and that people should know about and use. But there's two goals. There's celebrating those achievements, but then also encouraging EV purchasing. And I think that there's a way to word the recommendation that addresses both of those. And I think that to not address them separately creates a vagueness that is misleading.
Yeah.
Can you drop that text into the chat, please, so I can look at it through the
Absolutely. Yep.
And I will be like, I'll put a kind of a finer point on why this was again broadened out. I think that there was general discomfort from MDOT on promoting single occupancy vehicles, electric vehicles on our forms of mass transit, where we are actively trying to get people into mass transit, which is fundamentally more efficient, no matter how you slice or dice it. So we just wanted to be, I don't know that MDOT, I don't know that we need a pat on our back for the work that we've done. We were just trying to create a broader conversation about electrification without taking away, putting a priority on single occupancy versus mass transit. That's where we were really having sort of a challenge with the recommendation as it was previously stated.
That
And
makes a lot of
wouldn't,
sense.
wouldn't
makes
one
a
of
lot
the
of
goals
sense.
be, it does, and wouldn't one of the goals be to also increase ridership in many of these modes? I mean, could that be something that we're trying to do through the recommendation? I mean,
Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, and I trust the committee, just knowing where we were orienting, not wanting to promote single occupancy vehicle and mass transit, like you all can certainly word it to be broader or more honed in, but we just didn't feel comfortable saying buy an EV, get off the bus.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that, there's a way to alter this recommendation where it's, that we're directing MDOT or suggesting that MDOT, work to include this educational messaging in the appropriate mode of transportation there, to encourage EV purchasing for single occupancy vehicles. And then, separately also say to encourage, greater riding of, multimodal transportation. I think that there's a way to incorporate both into this. And right now they're one thing and it doesn't fully address them. Rosemary?
I think Rosemary.
That might be a legacy hand.
Sorry, it was a legacy hand.
Kristen?
Okay, so now I'm seeing it as we want to promote the use of EVs, whether it's bus, single person vehicle. That's what we're really trying to promote. Yeah, got it.
Yeah. Yes.
I might suggest that, maybe the language is something along the lines of, the Maryland Department of Transportation should work to include educational messaging promoting the benefits of electric transportation with, within the appropriate mode. I don't know. But I think that, tying the kind of messaging to the type of vehicle addresses Morgan's concerns. Jennifer?
I put some suggested alternative language into the chat.
Yeah, I just read it over, Jennifer, and I actually like the use of the word clean transportation. I think that kind of incorporates all of these elements. And that's a clear way of saying it, basically.
Tristan?
I see what you did there, Jabari. Very good.
Oh, that wasn't even I promise you that was not on purpose, Tristan. That's good though.
I'm wondering if our colleagues from MDOT can give me an idea of do you all need us to do this for you? Put in this recommendation? Is that beneficial in some way, or does it feel, I don't know, like we're out of line?
That's a good question.
I don't think we're out of line because it's aspirational and it's what we are striving to do as well. I mean, my only question with the wording, and I like the wording that was suggested in the chat, is Morgan sitting on the other committee. Is there some language that's different that is incompatible or whatever? Because my understanding was that they were working on a similar recommendation. Is that not accurate?
It was that recommendation did not pass. They decided that they had enough other stuff on their plate that they'd leave this issue to ECO.
Oh, so they deferred it to us.
Yeah.
Yes, that's correct.
Gotcha.
Yes, there's no competing recommendation right now.
Okay.
So Jerry put up the recommended language that Jennifer put in the chat. He just put that on the document. If you all could just read over that and see what you think. I like that. The walking and biking, though. I guess that is something that MDOT promotes as well, correct?
Oh,
So,
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's still avoided BMT.
Yeah, our whole pedestrian safety action plan is predicated on promoting that our roads are for everybody.
And again, being very specific, possibly, we're saying benefits of clean transportation. Then we mentioned electric vehicles, electric buses, then public transit. What would be the public transit that we're speaking of, like the MARC train? I mean, do we need to be more specific with that aspect of when we say public transit? If we're talking about electric and other clean forms, maybe that's too.
I think it's inclusive. But my question is that, that this recommendation, as it stands now with this amended language that Jennifer has offered, what is this? MDOT does this. I mean, obviously, there's to what degree is the question, but I'm curious now if we're just recommending they do what they already do with the current language. Morgan and Jim, do you have an opinion on whether or not this is a new directive in any sense?
I would have to check with I don't know what type of communications are done on the buses. I know there's some external type stuff. I don't think it's a new directive, but maybe I defer to Jim. I don't think SHA is doing anything, right, Jim?
Not specifically. I mean, we have talked about the ways to like promote, EV charging stations in the same way that we do, other types of gas stations and things like that. That has been, to my knowledge, and it may be happening at a higher level, but to my knowledge, that's been the main focus of what we've been talking about. But
so I think the question would be then, do you feel that we need higher level push for MDOT to be able to accomplish these things? So do we want to ask again, I don't know if it's the governor or the sub cabinet to, well, we don't want to say it's forced, but to recommend the MDOT work with this initiative. So we're basically saying, are we going to go higher above MDOT to get this accomplished, or because otherwise we may not really need to do it if you're already doing the work? Is that kind of what the idea is?
Just having this backing help.
yeah, I mean, I don't know that we would see it as like a directive to go higher to tell us, that we have to do more, but I think it would focus our current leadership on their desire to do more.
Okay.
And do you for the language that we have here as amended by Jennifer, do you have any suggestions on that language? Do you have a preference between what you offered and this new language that we have here? Your input is certainly important.
I don't know whether we feel compelled, Morgan, to take it back to the House and see if anybody had any thoughts about it or not. I'm fairly comfortable with it. Of course, I'm always the cautionary person. So I where we say they, what we should incorporate, I would like the language that we should work to incorporate, but because it gives us the caveat of being able to say again that there's some things we can't do, but generally I like it. I mean, I generally like this language personally.
Yeah. I don't think I need to, from my side at TSO, I don't think I need to bring this back. Especially if, we provided our comments and this is what is coming from the committee. So.
Okay. Does anybody have any qualms about, replacing the previously amended language with the new language here as provided by Jennifer?
Well, then do we have a problem with adding should work? I know we talked about that. Do we want to put back should work to incorporate? That's what, Jim, is that what it sounded like that was kind of...
I did not intend should work. Should work means it's just too much permission for failure and saying you can't do anything. And I just want to also point out that a major difference between the two messages is that the message that I submitted has the specific benefits of these things, as opposed to just saying, look, there's an electric vehicle. It says cost savings, health benefits, improved transportation. So it is substantively much more of a sales message that will hopefully bring in new people and not just be DOT patting itself on the back.
Mm-hmm. Right.
We have a suggestion from Mr. Silva suggesting that we include messaging when people are having their vehicles tested, their emissions testing, which I think is a strong addition. I added emissions testing.
Is that an area that MDOT oversees, or is that highway? Okay.
That's a good question.
Would you all be able to do that? And you were just saying that, like,
no, we do
billboard
oversee
stuff.
the emissions testing that's done under MBA.
Okay.
I don't know what the requirements would be to do something like that, but we do oversee emissions testing.
Okay.
I certainly agree that is something that we should explore. But like I say, I yes, MVA's operation of the VEEP inspection stations is indeed under MDOT. And so that is, and I had seen that in the email comment, and I thought, boy, that is a good idea. So I don't know, whether to include it specifically or just say that is something that we should look into.
Oh, good suggestion. So then the last question is, who are we directing this directly to the agency? That knows what we have in the recommendation. So we're asking the actual Department of Transportation. Okay. Well, then the last thing I would say is just minor thing, just spell it out. Maryland Department of Transportation, even though everybody knows what MDOT is.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. That's the first thing that, like, in fact,
Yes, please. Thank you.
I would have been like acronyms, but
we have a war against acronyms these days.
Yeah. Well, actually, I like this. I think this is much stronger. And to Jennifer's point, I think we add some specifics to what the benefits are for and the reason, which is, again, we're trying to hopefully incentivize Marylanders to consider these forms of transportation. So do we have any other comments right now, questions about this recommendation? Oh, good. So I think we can go with this one then. To vote. We can't now, but to add this to the our second recommendation for voting.
yeah. So we have 2 minutes left in the meeting, so we still need to open for public comment for a short time, and also just to let everyone know what the process will be here. So I will send out an email that includes the recommendations that we did vote on, and then these 2 recommendations that we still have yet to vote on, and that will include a timeline for how long we're keeping voting open and the procedure for how that's going to look. So, just watch your inbox for that, and I'll communicate with the co-chairs on exactly how they want that to work. So, stay tuned. And then otherwise, I think that, Jabari, if you have nothing else to offer for the meeting, then we move to public comment for the last minute.
I think that's it. Yeah. So, okay. Do we have any public comment? All right. And we had
I guess
Jeff comments in the chat.
I would make a comment that before the meeting, we should think about, is there a fiscal note or amount for any of these 4 and what it might be, because people will ask that at the commission meeting.
Yeah, historically, we've avoided the costs because there's been a lot of pushback about those specific numbers, especially when we kind of pull them out of a hat. If the decision last year was that if you have fiscal information to offer, you need to have documentation to back it up. And right now we don't.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, good point, Jennifer. We decided we're going to back away from that because we did actually try this, I think maybe 2 or 3 years ago. And then we just learned that that's probably not the best method. So that's the reason why we're not doing it. Okay. Well, is there anything else? All right. It's 4:30 on the dot. So look forward for that email, and our next meeting will be October 15th. So in about 2 months. Oh,
Mr.
okay.
Silva.
Hey, I'm sorry for interrupting right now, but
Okay.
I want to thank you very much for including the PSA about EVs in front of those people waiting to get their emission systems tested. All right?
Which
I
I have to do very
appreciate that, and I think that'll that's a trapped audience, and they need to see it.
Good point.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye now.
All right. Thank you all. And we'll
Thanks,
see you
everybody.
soon.
Appreciate it.
Take care, everybody.